Alright everybody, welcome to the tutorial on how to get an Atlas server going. So this guide is been created for my Discord that I've got going with a bunch of other Atlas admins, and we started on day one trying to figure out how to make it work, and with the help of my community and several other communities, we have finally got something that seems remotely okay for how to get this server running. So without any further ado, here goes the beginning of it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need to grab is the Atlas Master installer. The only part you're going to need to edit is this line right here, the second line. How you're going to do, links are going to be in the description, and you're going to go down here, you're going to copy all of this, and then you're going to paste this into a text file. That text file is going to be done by making a new text document, and then we're going to name this AtlasMaster.ps1, and then I'm going to get rid of the beginning of that. It's going to tell me that. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to right click. I'm going to edit this. This is going to bring up the PowerShell ISE. The PowerShell ISE looks a lot like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to click in here at the top. We're going to hit paste, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to edit this line right here. This is the part that will be the location of where Atlas gets installed. Not your client for Atlas, but the Atlas server itself. After that, we're going to go up here. We're going to go ahead and hit save. And now we have a file. There's two ways of running it. One, you can go back to the desktop. You can right-click on the file, and you can select Run. Or you can run it right from here. This is the way I'm going to do it here. So I will go here. I'm going to hit Run. It's going to create stuff. It's going to go through. It will, in just a second, it will tell me that it's moving forward. There we go. It downloaded Steam. It went through. Steam Bootstrapper. Sure, yeah, you can do anything you want. Go for it. Okay, so it'll go through. The first thing it's going to do is you're going to see it pre-allocating. Okay, pre-allocating means that it's making sure that it has enough space. The next step is downloading. This can take different amounts of time depending on the speed of your internet. So when that's done, I will go ahead and come back and show you what the next steps are. Okay, so here we are on my server. I'm currently running a 2x2, and I've got the two install scripts. This other one here, if you notice, is a much smaller script. This is just for updating. The primary script goes in and it does all sorts of stuff. The updater, all it does is goes in, grabs the Steam stuff, and runs the Steam executable. Now, running scripts, one thing to note is that you might have to come down here and actually, hang on. One thing, how do I make this bigger? I have to stop it. So one thing to note is that you may have trouble running these scripts, and it just crossed my mind. What you'll want to do is you'll want to right-click on your PowerShell icon or from the start menu or whatever, but you're going to want to run it as administrator. All right, that goes through, does this, comes over here. What we're going to do, this is a regular command inside PowerShell. It's set-executionpolicy. Execution policy, or -execution policy space unrestricted. Okay, let's pay attention to that one more time here. Set execution policy -execution policy space unrestricted. What this means is it's going to allow for PowerShell scripts to run on your machine. If you want to change this or turn this back off once you do it, you're going to change the unrestricted to restricted. So if you want to allow and disallow as necessary, you can do it through here. But you have to do it before you attempt to run these scripts. It won't work any other way. All right. So back to the thing. So the updater, this as well will also, there will be a link to this in there. You already know how to run it. So let's talk about the server itself. The server itself consists of a few parts. There is an AtlasTools directory. There is a ShooterGame directory, and there are the launch batch files. Now I got these from the initial one from CPJet64. I'll give a link to his Twitch and his YouTube channel here in the comments as well, because he has some really in-depth information that is going to be well outside the scope for this quick guide. So going here, let's talk about this kind of stuff. So inside the AtlasTools, there is something called the RedisDatabase. This guy here is where all of your characters are, specifically this file. This is not where your builds are. That's stored in the same way that Arc did it in the save directory. But the RedisDatabase is going to do pretty much just characters. There is some other stuff in there, but I'm not going to get into it. So know that that exists. And now let's take a look at our batch file. Again, will also be in there. Now, if you're just running one server, then you don't need any of this stuff. And this is what's going to be in the description. What this does is this starts the Redis server, then waits, and then launches the actual batch file for the 00 grid. We'll talk about the grid here in a second. Now, let's talk about the batch file. Okay, so this is that launch 00. This is the one that actually launches a server. Let me go and get a little further into this, and I'll be right back. Okay, had to change my admin password there for a second, because otherwise you guys were going to see that, and I don't want that to happen. All right, so the first thing is start. That means that we're going to start something. High is high CPU priority, and then it's going to be the path to the game. So if you changed yours from the E drive, then you're going to need to change this right here. You can leave the /ShooterGame, but anything that you changed for path, you're going to have to change right there. The next thing we've got is Ocean. That's the name of the map for Atlas. Then we've got this section right here. This is grid 00. We'll talk about that when we get over into the map editor here in a second. Alternate save directory name, you're going to want to change this. Now, if you're running multiples, you're going to want to make an alternate save directory for each one of those. I would recommend making them go with the along the same lines as the coordinates for the grid. So if you're launching 00, have it save into 00. If you're launching 01, save into 01. Admin pass, this is where the admin password is stored for your server, is in this startup string. The rest of this stuff is the query ports and the rest of this. And I will go ahead and again have this in the description. All right, so this leads us to the server grid editor. You're going to have to download that from GitHub. This is released by Grapeshot. They did all of this stuff, so it has nothing to do with anything that I've developed. It has nothing to do with any community project. This is straight out of them. So what you'll do is you can open it up. Editing somebody else's map is problematic. Possible, but problematic. So I'm going to show you how to create your own from the start. And we're going to be doing a one-by-one on this. So we're going to hit Create Project. A couple things we need. We need to leave this number alone. It is unique to your world. This is the name that you're going to change in order to bring up in the Steam browser. You're going to change this to 1 by 1, and you're going to do the cell size of 1.4 million. That's 1400000. If you go higher than this, then there is some underlying technology that will break everything. It'll cause tons of crashes. Unreal is not designed to go any higher than that. I'm not going to get into the whys, but trust me, if you do it higher, well, then you're on your own. And you need this UTC offset to be 0. Everything else, we're going to leave. This is the default information and passwords. Remember this port here, because you might need that here in a second. We're going to go ahead. We're going to hit create. Okay, so one thing to note, if you need to edit it later, you can get back to there by going to project and then edit project. This right here, this section right here is where you would change if you want to password protect the server. All right, so now let's add some islands. So down here, we see all the different islands that we could add. Explaining what each and every one of them do is well beyond. If you need to know a little more about the islands, you can join our Discord, and we've got some guides on what these prefixes, extensions mean. I know that CH, for instance, at the end here, means that it's going to be a desert. PvE islands are the ones that have power stones, so on and so forth. I would warn you right now, adding all the PvE islands on one grid is not going to happen. You'll be using 32 gigs of RAM, and you're going to be unstable at best. Besides, these islands are pretty big. Having 8 of them, not going to be so good. All right, so the first thing you're going to look for is a starting island. Now, starting islands all end in E. There we go. Let's get right here. Bam. I'll slap him right in the middle. You can hold right click and turn it by sliding one way or the other once you do that. You cannot make the island bigger. You cannot do anything else. So I'm going to uncheck the show server info, and that's going to make this go away. And I'm going to hold control, and I'm going to left click on the island. You want to change this to 0. This means that you have the ability to spawn on that island. That's what makes it a free port that you can use. There are other things that you can change. I wouldn't recommend it, but hey, if you're being adventurous, go for it. Back up your server grid often, and you'll be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a couple more islands. I'm going to add this one. I'm going to add this one. I'm going to add this one. Add this one here. Going to go ahead and spin some of them, move them around. Hey, why not have a big polar island right there? Look at that. Okay. So when letting maps, islands touch, if you do this, it's going to be weird. You're going to be able to like climb up one and travel right to the other one. I'd be real careful about that. I'd also be real careful about putting things too close to the edge, because you're going to have that big red wall here and here, all the way around here, because there's no server on the other side to accept the connection. So the closer you want to make them into the center, the better. I really wouldn't recommend going over. I know the island, the map that I used was about 8 gigs, and it was about 8 gigs of RAM, and it had 1 PvE island on it, and 1 free port, and a handful of other islands. All right, so now that we've got that done, we're going to go ahead and hold control, and we're going to left click in the map itself. All right, so this, you're going to put in your public IP in here. In this field, you're going to, again, name what you'd like for this region to be named. Chances are, if this is 00, you're going to want to name this the same as you named your project. They don't have to be the same, but they do. If you want to avoid a black sky, you're going to want to change that to 1. Otherwise, you can get a black sky in there. The rest of the stuff, port, the default is 57561. The default game port is 5761. This seamless data port, you're going to need that one too. So we've got a few different ports. These two, if you're doing a 1x1, the game port and the port are going to need to be exposed to the outside. If you don't know how to expose those to the outside, port forwarding, NAT, that kind of thing, you're this guide is not going to teach you, because every router is different, and more than likely you're using a home-based router, and they're all different. Some of them work, some of them work right. If you are trying to do this on your own LAN and coming back, that functionality is not yet built into the server software. So you need this server to be outside of your house. So if you've got a friendly grandma that's got an internet connection, good place to put this box. All right, so let's see. We've got the sky index, we've got the ports, and we're going to hit save. Never, ever, ever hit launch preview, trust me. All right, so we've got, we're going to hit save. You can create discovery zones by holding shift and left clicking and dragging, and that will create a discovery zone. You can edit your discovery zones and name them. If we scroll in real far here, we'll see that it's got no name. So what I do is, after I've made the discovery zones, I'll name them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on. And then when you zoom in and out one little click, you'll now see that it's named 1. So you'll see 1, 2, 3. And if you want to name your islands, that's that little placard that comes up when you first step onto the island. It also is displayed in the top left-hand corner. So if you're looking for a little RP stuff, that's there, and that'll work. All right, what else do I need to go over that? Okay, so we've gone ahead and we have exported these files out. We're going to copy those files, and then we're going to go back over and we're going to paste them into the server. I'll show you where here in just a second. Okay, we're back on the server, and I'm opening up the Atlas folder, and I'm going to go into ShooterGame. Here you'll see server grid, and it should have all the pictures in it that you've this is where you're going to paste. It's going to paste the server grid folder. It's going to paste servergrid.json and servergrid.serveronly.json. If you are replacing your map on your server, then you're going to need to delete these 3. All right, editing the config of your server. This is how much XP you get, things like that. There are 2 main files for this. One, they will not be here if you haven't tried to start your server yet. Once they are, then you'll see this. You'll go into the ShooterGame folder. So here's where your batch files are. ShooterGame, saved, the folder that you used for your alternate save directory, config, Windows Server, and you'll need these 2 files right here. So game user settings is going to have like your XP multiplier, harvest amount. If you look up ARC settings, you're going to get the same stuff out of this. If you're going to do multiple servers, I'm not sure yet if it just takes the settings for the main server and runs with it, or if we need to copy these after we're done and save them into each subsequent server. But for your purposes of just creating a 1x1, that's how it works. The last step that you're going to need is you're going to need to go over into your Atlas directory. You're going to launch the Atlas all, which will launch with my batch file that you're getting here. Will launch these 2 files. These are the ones that we're going to need. The Redis server, again, you're going to need to edit these to make sure that these paths are correct. And you can do that by just simply following these paths. Edit them as necessary, do whatever you need to do. All right, once you've got that, you'll be able to spin up a server. You will see the Redis server show up and your 00 server. Once you see this last line here, you're all good. You're ready to connect to it. Now, connecting to it, you'll probably have to go in through the Steam browser and then add it as a favorites. I'll show you how to do that now. So inside Steam, you're going to hit View, Servers, and you're going to add a server. You're going to add in the IP and port. So in your case, you're doing the 57561, you would add in your public IP. So let's just say your public IP is 8.8.8.8.8 colon 57561. And then you hit add this server to favorites. It should come over and look something very similar to this. After that, it'll show up when I go and launch Atlas. Hang on a second here, and I'll launch Atlas. I will say join new Atlas, and then you're going to have to bring this drop down away from the official servers, unofficial, bring it down to favorites. You'll see your server there, you'll join, and you're all good. All right, I'm not a YouTuber. I'm an IT guy who just happens to want to help people out. So if you need anything, go ahead and join the Discord and ask your questions there. There's a lot more people than just me in there doing it. Eventually, I plan on releasing something that looks like the old Arc Server Manager or ASM. The guy who does that has stressed that he doesn't have a whole lot of interest in pulling together something for Atlas. So if that continues, then I'll probably release something if I can. But if not, this works pretty well. All right, guys. Thanks, and take care.